Welcome, Dr. Roman. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Jodi. Appreciate it.
So now your work is absolutely fascinating, and I want to give the audience a little bit of history for you. So I want you to run us through how you got interested in NPP, what NPP is, and a little bit about what you do, and then we can go from there.
Sure, absolutely. Well, we've Neuro Peak Performance mission is to bring a really good sense of heightened awareness to these neurocognitive performance industries, which is really a toddler of an industry when you talk about it in terms of sports and the neurocognitive aspects and performance of it. We obviously do numerous things, but from a neurocognitive perspective into sports, we specialize in fight sports, neurocognitive performance. So what does that mean? Oh, that means that we look at several aspects that increase human performance with the neurocognitive aspect in mind. Obviously, we don't take a cookie cutter approach with athletes. We've been working with athletes from around the world for the past almost 5 years, coming up in January. So we're really excited about that. We're blessed in a way that we've been able to work with some of UFC's legendary fighters like Carlos Condit, Tim Means. I don't know if you follow UFC or not, but these people are legends in their sport and whatnot. And we've learned so much from them in doing these things. So as I was saying, we don't take a cookie cutter approach when we do the training for the athletes, but we do have a 10-point assessment system that we use, and then we custom design a training protocol for the athletes. Obviously, every athlete is different because every brain is wired differently, and so that is first protocol for us, and then we take it from there.
Okay, fantastic. And you have and I'll dive into exactly what you do with the athletes in a minute, but you have a very interesting background. So mindfulness, neurobiology, doctorate in leadership. What a combo. Tell me a little bit about that and how that sort of came about for you.
Yeah, so throughout the years, I've been able to, and been very blessed to look at different types of education and experiences. I'm a former U.S. Marine, and what I did in the Marine Corps was in law enforcement, and I was a criminal investigator. So I managed to finish my bachelor's degree in human services, and then finish off a master's degree in administration, and a doctorate degree in leadership, and with a minor in psychology. But I was fortunate enough to get into a 3-year neurobiology program, and I got certified in neurobiology. Being a former wrestler and in boxing, we've always loved fight sports and combat sports. So it really made a lot of sense to help athletes out that way into the neurocognitive performance. And we when I say we, me, my associates, Junior and Ivan, but we always talk about the upward curve of human performance, and I think that specialness that is expressing really from a genetic standpoint. I believe that we all have some very unique genes that need to be expressed, that are full of talent and purpose, and sometimes they don't express till later on in life, or sometimes when you're very young, depending on the environment and everything else, I guess. But yeah, so it's a specialness to the upward mobility of human performance, and that's what we do. That's how we contribute to planet Earth while we're here. We contribute in a way that we help athletes perform just a little bit better.
Yeah, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And it's so important. Like I come from a background of actually horse riding, but dressage, but it's still that mental aspect is in every aspect of life, but it's so important. And would normally be doing a lot of visualizations to get me through routines and things like that. But I would imagine fight sport is so much the same. It's incredible to be able to be that sharp, that quick, that focused, and really that's the edge that you need, and even in everyday life. So it would transfer across the whole of these athletes' lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, horseback. How long have you been riding?
Well, I haven't ridden for a few years now, actually, but I used to ride, state and competitive dressage. So I was trained by some of the top dressage Olympians.
Oh.
Yeah, when I was quite young, so I would have been about 16 that I had sort of peaked at my competitive edge.
Wow.
Yeah, it was good fun. Good fun. I love the horses, and I love riding. So can't say I've done any fight sport, but I do enjoy a bit of boxing.
Good. Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about Neuro Peak Performance. So like, how did that come about? So you said it's been about 5 years now. Like, how did that start? How did you get into that? Like, was it something that you just went, oh, I'm just going to start this. This is fantastic. Like, give me a little bit of an idea of how that came about.
Yeah, we always talk about that. I was looking at Junior. He was like, yeah, that is very interesting, because we always talk about that. So we started what we were doing. We're using neuroscience and neurobiology for leadership development. So there's a concept out there known as neuro leadership, and that's what we're doing. We're doing workshops and consulting type work for entrepreneurs and corporate types. And then one of the a world boxing championship boxer, Austin Trout, contacted us, and he wanted to work with us on some mindfulness and some visualization. And that's how we started. We said, this is great. We loved it. He enjoyed it. It was very powerful for him. So one athlete led to another, and then how word of mouth is. People start looking at different avenues of approaches to training. And that's very important, because we look at athletes, and the athletes that have an open mind, are very receptive to various modalities of training to get a competitive advantage. And that's very important. We like to work with athletes that are very open-minded, because they're very receptive to the training, and we don't have to explain too much to them. They get it. They know what the power of the brain does. They know the neural aspect of performance. And so we like to work with athletes like that. As a matter of fact, funny, here in Australia, we're working right now with a girl from Australia, a fighter. Her name is Arlene Blanco, and she's the #1 ranked Bellator featherweight in her division. So she's one step away from a championship belt, and we're helping her out, and we're working with her. She's very, very quick, and very adaptive. And so she happens to be in Albuquerque right now during her training camp at Jackson Wink in Albuquerque, Mexico. And that's where we're training with her. And hopefully she'll get that belt. So Arlene Blanco, the Aussie girl, Anger Fist,
I'll look out for her. That's incredible. So now this aspect of mental performance, and I want to sort of step this out a little bit with you. So it's quite and I think you say it as an intangible phenomenon where the coaches and athletes, they don't generally look into this or know how to access this, and even the technologies, which I also want to go through with you, because it's such a resource, their own mind, their own capacity, but also these technologies that can actually assist with that. So your mental skills and your, improving that fatigue, and then improving the stamina. So
yes.
Talk me through sort of like a stepped approach. You get an athlete. What would you then go through with them in terms of like, how do you step this out? Do you bring in the technologies really early on? Do you start to do a little bit more mindfulness first? So what does that look like?
Yeah, like I said initially, we do a 10-point assessment.
Yeah.
And that's with every athlete that we work with. This is what the 10-point assessment looks like. Number one, we start with their neural, visual, and brain processing speed. We want to take a look at how fast the brain can process multiple objects, targets of information, and we use Neuro Tracker. Neuro Tracker is one of the world's best software and on focus, concentration, and attention. It also works on training the brain and the individual not to be overly impulsive and avoid distractive information. So we use that. So that's the number one thing that we do. We then look at sequential cognitive sequencing. We have some numbers charts that we put and their ability to follow sequential information. We take a look at hand and eye coordination, and we use different technologies for that to see how well they perform with hand-eye coordination with agility, as well as not only physical agility, but the mental agility part of it too. And then we look at we look at vision quite in depth, because of all the receptors that are in our body, in the human body. Obviously 80% of those receptors are visual. They're in the eyes. So it makes just perfect sense that the visual stimulus, the visual sensory information is handled at a much greater percentile than any other type of sensory information. And obviously the visual cortex, the backside of the brain, is one of the bigger areas. So it just makes sense to take a look at visual. So we look at peripheral, we examine the peripheral visual acuity, coupled with reaction speed to that. Dynamic what we call dynamic matching, which is really a peripheral information and how you match it up in front on central vision as well. The near far focus, the ability eye and the brain to focus on far and near in milliseconds. Split attention, the ability to split your attention to mutual incoming information. We look at cognitive flexibility, also known as task switching. And this is how well you can task switch without hesitation or error-prone execution. And then we go to some real-time neurofeedback using EEG devices, such as the Muse device, which is for your prefrontal cortex, and the Versus, which is EEG technology that primes the neural networks for mental flow. You actually have to move some items on the screen with your thoughts alone, and that creates that primes the neural circuitry for mental flow. And mental flow is very important in any type of sport, and for fight sport, obviously it makes a lot of sense to do those things. So once we do that assessment, we take a look at where our opportunities are and our challenges, and we devise those protocols, and trust the process. And we've seen the process work very well. Like I said, it's not a cookie cutter approach. We know that there are some commonalities, and all these assessments are based on some of those commonalities, common things. So we take it from there.
And so how often do the athletes spend with you? Would it be a daily thing in the beginning, or would it be weekly or twice weekly?
No, it would be, the assessment usually takes about 2 hours, as is the training session, anywhere from an hour and a half to 2.5 hours, depending on what we are working on and the conditions at the gym or whatnot. But we usually try to meet once a week. And then how many, and this is a very good question, because a lot of people have asked us, how long does it take for me to see significant gains? And how do we see those gains? Well, the technologies that we use obviously have metrics. So we measure everything that we do. That way we know we're making progress. And the first question is, how long does it take for me to see some improvement? And the answer is, well, it depends. It depends on how adaptive your brain is. It depends on the condition that you are on a daily basis. I mean, if you're mentally taxed taxed out, you're going to have some small gains and whatnot, because you know that the brain is very economical. It's very lazy. It's a very lazy organ. You know, it wants to conserve as much energy. You know, it's a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how long it takes. Sometimes we will train anywhere from 9 sessions up to 17 sessions. You know, to make those significant gains. And from a 5-sport perspective, traditionally they look at an 8-week training camp. So sometimes we wind up with 8 weeks, and we intensify the training. We make it a little bit, make the session a little bit longer, and really focus on the areas that we need to focus with that athlete.
Yeah. Incredible. So
you want to add anything, Junior? No? Okay.
But you know that you're talking sort of the neuroplasticity, so the neuroplasticity in athletes. It's not really brought out to attention very often, and it can be a powerful thing when you're focusing on redirecting pathways to create new patterns of thinking or behavior. So that's really obviously that's key to what you're doing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you know, it's funny that you mentioned it. Very interesting that you mentioned that, because these elite level athletes, they have their motor cortex very honed in, very refined. Muscle memory is there. And that's a plus. And it could be something bad if you got a bad habit in there. So we look at those things. But it's very important that the neuroplasticity, you know, is the sole basis of what we do in every day, and makes us change every day, right? Because our experiences change, our memories change, and we're just as good as the last memory that we have of ourselves. And we keep building that narrative, that personal narrative that keeps changing, you know, and that's part of the book of life. That's part of your book. It's part of my book. And somewhere in the middle, you know, there's the rest of the truth of society, right?
Absolutely. And I think even more so just for external, you know, people who aren't even involved in a lot of you know, high level sports, all this is relevant to daily activities of redirecting brain function. And there's so much more coming out in terms of even you know, the psychotherapies as well, and even some of the substances that people are using to help bring together both, you know, in areas of the brain to actually create different parts of neuroplasticity and you know, improving brain function and cognitive function. So I'll get to that in a minute, because I wanted to ask you about some aside therapies that you might get into. But explain to me a little bit more about some of these technologies. Like run me through one of the ones that you would love the most, or you really believe in the most. There's so many that you use, you know, like, and I've pulled up a few, obviously the Emotive, the Muse, the Neuro Tracker, the Halo Sport, some of these things. So run me through one of them at least, and give me a bit of how it sort of starts, you know, where you put it on, what activities you run through when you're actually doing it.
Yeah, so I have no really preferred one. All of them are basic tools that we use to make progress in terms of the neurocognitive performance. I'll tell you one of the technologies that I like using in combining other best practices in training modalities is the Synaptic strobophobic glasses. And these glasses, they look like sunglasses. I don't know if you've seen them. They kind of flicker. They have a flickering effect, and then they got several options that you could block one eye, block the other, block quadrants of the eye to stimulate and block and hinder vision. I really like the use of that technology in terms of coupling it with other drills that we might have with cognitive flexibility. For example, it really shocks the brain, the visual cortex. You know, the visual cortex obviously handles incoming information, and when that incoming information is distorted in any way, shape, or form, you know, the brain really starts to snag. And then that's an industry term for stimulate neural activation and growth. So it tries to grab other nearby neural circuitries that are used for other other things such as predictability, intuitiveness, and it starts to make connections with those neural circuitries to overcompensate for that visual hindrance. You know, so once you take those glasses off, it's like when you're training with a weighted vest and you run with a weighted vest. Once you take that weighted vest off, it's like you feel like you can run faster.
Yeah.
You know, so same thing, same concept. You know, the brain is now wired and made connection with some neural networks. And you know, the first law of the brain is neurons that fire together wire together. So once they fire together, the brain starts to use those neural circuitries for every other thing that you use on a daily basis, and that's part of the neuroplasticity, and it's also part of structural and functional plasticity as well. So yeah, that's one of the tools that we use, and I particularly like that one too because of the way that you could implement it in other with other drills. And I'll tell you a story. We were training with an athlete that, and I'll tell you his name. Tim means the dirty bird. Tim means he 2 years ago he suffered a freakish ankle break during a fight. So his leg was all twisted up, and he had a whole year and a half to rehabilitate and work out his injury. So during that time, we worked with him, and obviously he had a physical strength and conditioning coach that he was seeing. But when we worked with him, we used those strobophobic glasses a lot because it turns out that there was a research study on them by I think it's Chicago, one of the universities in Chicago, and they found out that by using those glasses and doing training activities, the brain was not overcompensating for the injury. Because 80% of the information coming in is visual, sensory, visual information. So the brain knows that there's an injury that's being treated and is healing. So based on the visual information, it tries to overcompensate for that injury and movement.
Yeah.
So with those strobophobic glasses, we found out that because of the effect that it has, the brain is more concerned about the immediate threat, the visual threat. You know, so it made the training very beneficial for him because he wasn't the brain wasn't trying to overcompensate for his injury.
Yeah,
so it was really good for him. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. Now, as you mentioned, injuries. I think the elephant in the room for fight sport is head injuries. So you know, how do you deal with that? Do you notice any differences in terms of performance or what you're doing with those who have had quite heavy head injuries versus none, or you know, maybe none of the athletes you work with have never not had one? But how do you get around that, and what sort of, you know, things do you recommend for your athletes?
Yeah. So knock on wood, we've never dealt with anybody that had a concussion or a TBI or something serious and whatnot. But you could actually tell when you first start, if you start working with an athlete that's been around for a while, and, you know, anywhere, you know, they got, you know, numerous amounts of fights. Most concussions and brain injuries occur during practice, during sparring, and not really in fights, but which makes them more susceptible to those types of injuries. But yeah, we have seen a like with the Neuro Tracker, which is also used by clinicians as part of a holistic treatment modality for concussion recoveries. And we have seen some slower speeds, threshold speeds at first during the Neuro Tracker, and then all of a sudden they start progressing, and then they break free. You know, their speed so much increases so much so that it's very significant. You know, one of the things that we did experience is one of the athletes took a whole week vacation to go to nature. And that's all they did. We're out in nature. They weren't out in the concrete jungles, but in the forest, dirt, with lakes, with water, with Mother Nature. And when he came back the following week, we ran a neurotracker session, and he made a huge breakthrough.
Wow.
So it's really dynamic in terms of, was it nature? Was it him just relaxing for a whole week and not think about anything else? The daily rut of life? Who knows? But the fact that it happens, it happens. And this is a fighter that's been around for years and has a very good track record. So yeah,
that's incredible.
The fact that it happens. Yeah.
Again, taking time out in places like that can be incredible for so many different reasons. It can really reset the person, reset us.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we were up this past weekend, we ended a training camp with Danab Badgaral. He's a bantamweight UFC fighter out of Mongolia, and we just finished his training camp. And we went up to the mountain. This is, I think the altitude is 10,500 feet, and you can feel the air is so thin, but it's just so crisp, and so it just gives you this sensation of, you know, I belong on this planet. This is us, you know. And it was really great up there. We did some drills up there, you know, in a high altitude, and it was just it was great, you know.
Love it. Oh gosh, we need more nature. Absolutely.
Yes.
Connections super important. Now I just want to touch quickly on mental strength. Now, I know you mentioned a lot about it in your writings, and so, you know, define mental strength for me and mental stamina and this fatigue that obviously the fighters would get quite quickly because it's huge, you know, that they're on constantly, and obviously everything that you're doing with them for training is really important. But just run me through a little bit for the audience about mental strength and your perception on it.
Yeah, I think mental strength is, and you look at mental strength from several aspects, but the two main ones is from the psyche aspect of it, right, and from the neural network aspect of it, how you're wired. So we look at it from those two angles. In that, obviously, some of our athletes do see a sports psychologist, and they look at the aspect of the psyche aspect, mindfulness, visualization as well, and we've also done that ourselves. But from a neural network aspect, mental strength has neural circuitries, you know, that are developed over the years. You know, what makes a person mentally stronger than another person is many things. You know, life itself, experiences. You know, that makes you mentally strong. The ability to tolerate pain is one. Obviously, mental strength. Not too many people can tolerate certain amounts of pain without, you know, tapping out and giving out. Some people happen to do it quite well. You know, even to the point where they break a bone. Yeah. That's how. Then they still don't give up. You know, look at the boxing Wilder Tyson Fury fight. You know, Wilder was fighting with a broken hand. You know, he could have given up, but he didn't give up. So that's part of the mental strength that I'm talking about. That has neural circuitry. You know, it's the ability to tell your amygdala, the fight flight, you know, aspects, to, hey, I know you're there. I know your neural networks are firing like crazy, and you want me to give up, but, you know, giving up is not an option. And that is neural circuitries. You know, the prefrontal cortex handles that, and it puts the brakes on those neural networks of pain and fear and anger and all this emotional aspects of things. So mental strength has to do with a lot of things, you know, sacrifices. Arlene Blanco, for example, from Australia, she hasn't seen her family in quite some time. and
Mm.
she lives in a dorm on top of a gym. Okay, and and those are sacrifices that people make, and that makes you mentally strong.
Yeah.
Helping others when you need help yourself, and you put others first,
Mm.
even when you're going through hard times, that makes you mentally strong.
Yeah.
You know, and it's this part of this narrative that a person develops, you know, over the years and over time, that they surround themselves with mentally tough people. You know, they make an inventory on the list. See, why am I mentally strong? And when you take an inventory, you find out that um, you're pretty mentally strong. There's a lot of things that make you mentally strong. The mere fact that you're here on camera with me, we're mentally strong.
Mm.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
We just don't give up. We want to reach out. We want to tell the world, this is me. This
Yeah.
is what we do. This is how we connect.
Yeah.
This is, you can do this yourself. We're here to help you out. You know, don't listen to the haters, the naysayers. Be mentally strong. And that's part of being mentally strong.
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. And it's that continual conditioning. And even as you are with the athletes, it's that conditioning and rewiring and looking at those situations and coming up against that, and then re-strengthening the brain and the mind and the mental and the emotional strength, and all those things come into it. And it's all a part of the brain health and the cognitive function as well. And yeah, it's all really important. And again, it's mental sort of health day or week, or we've just had that, so it's really very on topic at the moment that we're talking about this as well. It's so big and broad, this mental health, and it is the health of the brain, but health of the emotions. And we sometimes separate those from the health of our physical body. You know, we do therapies for helping our liver or helping our stomach, but we don't do a lot of therapies or support for our brain, for our emotional centers. So yeah, I think it's very, very important. And I love your work and that what you're doing, not only just for the athletes, but just spreading the word and helping others, yeah, in this way. So cool. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. As a matter of fact, and I'm going to send you a copy as soon as I get my copies on my new book, The Fight Sport Neurocognitive Performance Training. It is, yeah, it is, it's full of information on there. It's got, 20 of the best drills that we use with photos and everything. It's got a whole chapter on the visualization process,
Wow.
mindfulness,
Yeah.
and the top 20 basic neurocognitive drills that we have for our athletes. So it's a great little piece of book if you want to learn a little bit more into the fight sport neurocognitive performance training. It's available on Amazon, also on Instagram. The link is on my bio, and I will definitely, Jodi, send you a copy as soon as I get my copies to you, so you could have them as part of your knowledge collection.
Yeah, well, a big collection here that clients see every day, so I'm really interested in that. But I think it transfers so easily, and like you said, visualizations are so important in all aspects of life. And since I learned it from doing my dressage days, where we had to memorize very complex scenarios where we're moving around the track, you're doing your certain routine. Since that point, I had that memory of doing those things. And even to this day, a couple of years ago, it sounds funny, but I went to London on my own for the first time, away from the family and traveling, and and I'd been there before and I'd lived there before, but the visualizations was so vivid because I'd had so many massive experiences across my life of actually giving those visualizations life, that I had walked myself through that whole city, and the safety that I felt when I got there, and the plane ride and all these aspects of situations in a very positive way. It made me so much more relaxed to travel. And I think that all areas of life can be like that, where you can actually visualize the positive scenarios, not bad, we have to sort of singular that out, but also the performance aspect. And even just getting yourself to the gym, you can visualize yourself getting up and going to the gym if that's something that people struggle with. So visualizations are huge, huge.
Huge. Love it. Yeah, we practice it a lot. I personally use it a lot, and it's just a lot of the mental chatter that happens on on a daily basis. You know, we live in a world of distractions. You
Yeah.
know, social media being one of them. You could easily, you're checking your feed, see what's going on. Somebody made a comment or whatnot. Next thing you know, you just spend a whole hour of just flipping through everyone's Instagram posts, you know, trying to seek knowledge, right? See what's going on in the world, see what's going on with the people that you follow.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of distractions. So you need to meditate, you need to be mindful, you need to visualize, you know, especially the visualization aspect and the quantum physical perspective aspect of it. You know, this field of unity, what spiritual adepts call this oneness, you know, that we make up consciousness. And it's so powerful that people need to do that quite often.
Yeah.
Quite often, absolutely.
Yeah, quantum connectedness. I saw something the other day saying that, you know, anything we think now or say or vibrates out of our voice is heard at the other universe. You know, like it's that impressive that anything we think, say, feel, energy, it's there, it's out there. So we have to be very, very mindful of what we're doing and saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Even what we say, I was looking at a documentary and on the power of obviously visualization, but consciousness and the power of words, and it's and how words are stamped with the universe. Our voice never goes away. It remains forever because these are sound waves and they stay in consciousness in this universe forever. So they're kind of stamped in a way. So that's, to me, that's powerful. You know, more of you saying this. At some point in time, the universe says, well, you know, there's the opening. This is what you've been talking about. And it becomes a reality, you know, because it's already a reality here. If you really want something, it already exists. It's already real. You know, just time hasn't caught up to that, you know, to that event coming to, you know, to fruition. But, you know, and all that requires neural networks to be wired for performance, even the performance of thought. You know, it requires a degree of performance. Your thinking is a way of performing, you know, inside neural networks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the way you put that with the stamps, because it's so easy to visualize as well. Just stamping it to be, you know, getting the stamps out there, and the more that's there, and then that's opening up. It's incredible. So on the health of the neural networks and the health of the brain, your tricks and your tips, but your recommendations aside from the technologies and the trainings that you do with your athletes or yourself, is there anything else that you recommend that they do, you know, that they have to do? Like it's a no-brainer, even nutritionally or supplementally. Is there anything that you really believe in?
Yeah, I mean, the nutrition aspect is so important.
Yeah.
Water. I mean, 80% of our brain is made up of water.
Yeah.
You know, water is so important, and that's why when fighters go through their weight cutting period to make weight for certain, you know, weight class, when they're going to fight, then, you know, they deplete themselves a lot of water, and that's very dangerous. You got to get the right nutritionist that works with you over a period of time, so you don't have these drastic weight cuts in such short period of time that you have we've even seen fighters actually faint and collapse at weigh-ins, you know, and I mean, that's very unnecessary. You know, you need the right nutritionist. I'm not a nutritionist, but they're out there and they're very good. As a matter of fact, there's a nutritionist, the fight dietitian, I believe that's what he calls himself on Instagram. He's out of Australia. He's very good at what he does. And I'll send you the link, so maybe you could have him on your podcast show. Really knowledgeable guy. He's out of Australia, but yeah, water for sure. Rest and recovery is the other one. Sleep. You know, the brain does some our brains never stop functioning. Even when we sleep, it is functioning. You know, there's certain things that, key things, it does many things while sleep, but some very key things is that during your sleep time, your brain cells actually shrink significantly, and there's cerebral fluid that turns the brain almost like a dishwasher, and the cerebral fluid cleans the residue, the chemical and neurochemical residues of the day's thoughts, you know, because it's energy up there, right? So it does this cleansing process for you. It also cements memories into long-term memories. So it does a lot of important things. So sleep, you know, is a performance enhancement function. You know, sleep enhances your performance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, number one, I think, isn't it, really, for health and performance, and water as well. I get clients coming in here into my clinic all the time saying, I've got mental fog, I can't think straight, I've got a headache. Yeah. And then you hear that they're having like half a glass of water a day. You're like, whoa, okay, we'll give you a miracle cure here. Drink some more water. And they come back, they're like, oh my gosh, I can think straight again. This is incredible. Yeah. Very easy.
Thank you. You saved my life. Yeah.
Exactly. Just needed a push. So yeah, I absolutely believe in that. Now, is there anything else that you use? There's like a little secret supplement that you love using, or is there anything that you've heard about that really has worked in a lot of your athletes? Anything that you've come across?
Yeah, and this is the blue troch,
the
little blue Smurf.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Carlos Condit introduced us to that, and then also Dr. Shekhar Pipe, and I'll tell you what it does for me. And thank you guys for sending me some. It's really great. What it does for me is very interesting. I mean, and I was talking about this with my daughter about 3 hours ago.
Wow.
And what it does for me is it allows me to kind of like have a tunnel focus to whatever it is that I'm doing. I guess you could call it a hyper focus. But yet I could see all the other little distractions that are trying to say, hey, look at me. Hey, I'm here. Hey, look at this. Hey, how about this? Hey, do you remember this? But yet it keeps me focused on what I'm doing.
Yep.
So I was using it to write the last chapter of my book at the time, and I was really focused. You know, I was focused, and when you're writing, and then you write something, and the thought is there, and then that thought activates a memory, and that memory starts to unearth. Well, I saw it, and I didn't go to it. I said, okay, I recognize it. How are you there? You know, but I kept focused writing. You know, and that's what they do for me. I guess it's different for everybody. I don't know, but for me, that's what they do, and I love it. So if I want to hyper focus on something, that's it. That blue choice, that little Smurf, will do that.
I have very similar experiences, and I love it also for multiple things, not just focusing on work. I love it for exercise as well, when I'm trying to focus for that, because sometimes we get distracted easily when we're doing those sorts of things, you know, working out.
Yeah.
The body, it's like you're actually focusing on your body and the performance in it as well. But yeah, I think those distractions, that's key, and I've never heard it put that way before, because you can listen to those distractions, but you don't have that desperation of, oh my gosh, I've got to do it now. It's more almost, it's okay, it'll be there, I can focus still, it's okay. So it's sort of that calming but focus, isn't it? It's really, yeah, really cool.
Yeah, so I was listening to Dr. Huberman from the Huberman Lab, and they were talking about some research that they were doing at Stanford. So it turns out, it turns out the people that have ADHD or have not been diagnosed with ADHD, when they're really interested in something, their neural networks get into a hyper focus mode. I did not know that. But if something doesn't interest them, they lose interest real quick, and everything's over.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like the Smurf, you know. Get hyper focused, you know. I know that Carlos Condit used it. Carlos Condit, he just retired a couple of weeks ago. Legendary UFC fighter. He used it, and he would use it during the training, and he was like hyper focused.
Wow.
You know, with his movement and everything. Where we would do some cognitive flexibility neuro drills, he was just like on point, like, wow, no hesitation, no errors. I mean, he was flowing, you know, kind of like a butterfly, but very lethal, you know?
Yeah, that is incredible. And that, again, you can track that, you can measure that. You know, you've got the technologies to actually see that too with some of these therapies, you know, or the supplements, as I should call them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The metrics speak for themselves, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow, that's incredible. So anything lasting thoughts? Because I know I have to let you go soon. Now, anything tip-wise for even those who don't fight, who aren't professional sports people, for looking after their cognitive health, their neurocognitive health? Is there anything else that you would be recommending people? And we've talked about quite a lot already, but maybe just bringing back a few key points.
I think that, you know, one of the key points that I do want to mention is October is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Mm.
And from that perspective, um, reach out if you're depressed, if you're having any type of ill thoughts about who you are, about your narrative, about your life, about your experiences. Reach out. There's 1-800 numbers out there. There's people out there that can help you. They're trained to do those things. The other thing for the average Joe, whatever the average Joe is out there, or the average Karen, whatever the average Karen out there, be mindful that, you know, we have about 75,000 thoughts, you know, a day, and these thoughts are 80% of them are recurring thoughts. Every single day we have the same thought. We have the same thought process. Be mindful of that and ask yourself, why am I thinking this? And why am I thinking this right now? Because there's always little triggers or activations, a smell, a taste, something you saw, the felt sense. All your sensories are all tidying in this beautiful mosaic of neural interconnections and all the chemicals that our brain makes for us and our body makes for us to balance us out. You know, be mindful of your thoughts. Let go of things that don't serve your future purpose. You know, let go of that emotional baggage. You know, what's over is over. And that's one of the things that we tell our fighters, you know, leave something inside the cage. If you lost, leave the loss.
Yeah.
If you were angry, leave the anger.
Yeah.
If you have bad emotional, you know, states, leave them inside the cage, you know, and move on. Let's move on, you know.
The process.
So that would be, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Letting go and being present is so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Roman, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love your perspective. I love your work and what you're doing, and keep going, please. And I can't wait to actually read your book. I really am looking forward to that, because this interests me a lot, and it's so important for so many aspects. And it's not just for, like I've said, like I think for performance, absolutely. For fighters, amazing. And it's even more important, but for everyday people, for studying, for learning, for making changes, for creating, you know, new processes in their bodies, or just becoming better as a person, all this is so relevant and so transferable. So I really thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great. I really enjoyed it. I learned a few bits of knowledge from you. Thank you so much.
No worries at all. And yeah, I look forward to watching and talking to you soon as well, watching what you're up to.
Likewise. Cool.
See ya.
Thank you.